Good morning, Chair City Church. We are in week 3 of our current teaching series at the movies. In this series, we look at movies that have been released in the last year or two. We search those movies and look for a spiritual meaning. Then we look into the Bible to see what it says about that theme and how we can apply it to our lives. Today, we're looking at the movie Boys in the Boat. The movie is the movie, like the first two movies in our series, is based on a true story. The movie also continues a theme that we've been doing of how to navigate and manage difficulty and painship, hardship in our lives. The movie takes place in the early 1930s during the Great Depression. It's a very difficult time for people in our country. Many could not find work, couldn't put food on the table. The story is centered around the main character, a young man named Joe Rance. Joe lived in the state of Washington, northwestern part of our country, and we see him in the midst of very difficult circumstances. Now, he's about 18 or 19 years of age at the time, and in an extraordinary way, he manages to get into the University of Washington, though things are getting harder and harder by the day. Now, at this point right now in the movie, what you'll see is Joe is about to get kicked out of school because he can't afford the tuition. He's paid half the tuition. The rest is due. He doesn't have the money. He's been looking for a job. He's coming up short. And here he hears of an opportunity that the rowing team, if you make the rowing team, you will be getting paid and it'll go towards your tuition. Now, so Joe sets off to make the team, to try out for the team. James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4 says, "Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow, for when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing." Wow. Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. Pause right there. How does that statement sit with you? Like, how quickly did your mind push back on those words? Do you consider this a possibility? Is this your reality? Count it all joy when you fall under various trials. Underline that in your Bible. When was the last time you found yourself in a trial or struggle and you said, yes, I'm counting this as joy? Joe had gone through so much difficulty and trials in his life. At this point, he's 18, 19 years old. He's been raising himself since he's 13 years old. His mother died when he was about 11 or 12. The father met another woman and then himself, and his stepmom abandoned Joe and left Joe to go to another far-off region for work. It's been a hard go of it. James says, and James here is saying that we should have joy in the midst of our trials and our struggles. Now, James is not saying we should have joy because of our trials and because of our struggles. James says that we should have joy in the trial and in the struggle. And again, that's a shift of perspective. And that's important. Perspective is important. So it's not like, well, I just got a terrible health diagnosis, and that's awesome. Or I lost my job. That's absolutely fantastic. My boyfriend broke up with me. Awesome. Well, maybe your mom and dad thinks it's awesome. When a trial or trouble comes, there can be a joy that comes from within that trial, within that trouble, within that pain. Now, as the story keeps going, Joe has to work very hard to get on that team. And the tryouts for the team are difficult. They're pulling ropes and lacerating their hands. They're rowing for hours and hours and hours, climbing mountains. the end of the day, they're in pain. He has a hard time sitting when in his classrooms and staying awake during the lessons. Now, why would he do that? Well, he knows that his college tuition is being paid for. But really, I think as time goes on, that's the lesser of it all. He now knows that he's on a team. He knows that he has an opportunity to be part of a great purpose. Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. Why? Why would you consider troubles and trials an opportunity for joy? The answer is in verse 3. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. Right there in verse 3, in the beginning, for you know. There you go, a few words. They say so much, for you know. And it's describing a perspective. Knowing that the testing of faith produces patience, steadfastness, endurance, perseverance. James here is connecting the trial and the trouble and the pain with your faith. He wants us to develop this perspective in our life. James says the trouble, the difficulty is what develops our endurance of faith in life. For the most part, in our culture, our lives, you and I look to avoid pain and difficulty at all costs. We run from pain, we run from the challenges, and that's where it becomes very problematic, as we've explained earlier on in this series, where we go from a trouble and a pain and a problem and a trial, and then we kind of, the way we respond to it, sort of compounds it, expands it. James is telling us here, when we connect our faith to the trial, we will grow through these painful and troubling moments in life. Rather than us going backwards, we can go forward. Rather than us be diminished in our lives, we can grow. Take a hold of that. Our human reaction is to resist, to push back on the pain and the trial, to react insufficiently, inappropriately. James is telling us it's here and it can help you grow spiritually and in other areas of your lives as well. James says, this trial, the trouble, is an opportunity for joy, meaning the pain and the trouble, the trial, is a gateway for joy in your life. Wow, that's a different perspective. That's a supernatural perspective. We need perspective in life. Perspective is a lens in how you and I see the world. That word perspective, it comes from the Latin word which describes something you look through. Our perspective has a significant effect on how we make decisions, especially in the midst of trials and trouble. Our perspective has a significant impact on how we allow those trials and troubles to affect us. Our faith gives us the right perspective to navigate this complex world and all its difficulties. What is your perspective of faith? What is your perspective of faith in Jesus? God here in the book of James, in his word, has a perspective he wants to share with us. Trials are purposeful. God's hand is upon you, guiding you. Know this, for this you know. God's hand is on me. He's guiding me. He's desiring to comfort me, to strengthen me. For this I know, God will not waste my pain. For this I know, God has a purpose in the midst of my trial and my trouble, in all that I'm going through. For this I know. And I will find opportunity for joy. I will find opportunity for joy in this trial, in this problem. See, when you crash, how do you move forward? You develop and embrace this perspective, the perspective that says, for I know there is an opportunity for joy because God has a purpose in my pain. When you find yourself in a cave, pulled back, stuck, how do you move forward? For I know there is an opportunity because God has a purpose in my pain. This is a powerful perspective. You see, when we go through this trials and troubles and pain, we usually isolate. We separate our faith from the trial and the trouble and the pain. I tell my kids often, in your life, there will be difficulties, there will be troubles, there will be pain. And when that comes, you must connect your faith to the circumstances, to the situations that are bringing you the trouble and the pain. You must do that. Most people, many Christians, they separate the two. They isolate the two. They don't connect that. And then they move on in their flesh, meaning in what they know, in their humanity only, exclusive, separated from their faith. In the movie, we see Joe endure some really sad and difficult moments in his life that can lead to difficult times. Not only that can lead to very difficult times. And matter of fact, one of them we see now as Joe sitting there in a diner having lunch with a girl now that he's growing in a relationship with. Her name is Joyce, if I remember correctly. And they're sitting there having a nice time. A lot of fun, some laughter. And Joe looks out into the street and he sees his father, who he hasn't seen now since he's 13 years old. He's about 19 years old. And he gets up and he walks out into the street and he begins to talk to his father to discover that his father's actually lived in the area for about the last 5 years. And the father is rather very transactional, kind of distant, offers him a job for $1 a day and tells him, hey, you know what, Joe? And Joe's like, I can't believe it. You've been here for so long. You never came and looked for me. He said, you know what, Joe? You don't owe me nothing. I don't owe you anything. We're good. And, as I told you, you just got to take care of yourself. Gets in the car and he drives away. Wow. And we see here, a significant part of Joe's story. And how it has been affecting Joe along the way. There was a crash, 13 years old. Dad leaves him, drives away from him. Just whole family's gone. He's on his own. And then he's meandering through life, but in a cave-like state. You can see it's just underlining him, the anger, the bitterness, the frustration. And just right there in the moment, you see now it comes out. Listen. How do you process that? Can you picture Joe as he described it to George Pinnock in a conversation? George Pinnock is the builder of the boat, the maintainer of the boat. And Joe grew close to him, an older man, and he's telling him, he describes what it was like when he watched his father and his stepmom and the younger kids just drive away, and he just watched their car. How do you process that? When people that you are closest to abandon you, leave you, extraordinarily disappoint you, how do you trust anyone after that? Your perspective must be to connect your faith to the pain, to the trial. And when you do that, you process the trial and the pain through your faith. And you find joy. You find the opportunities for joy in the pain. When I say joy, I'm not talking about just a feel-good moment. I'm not even talking about the definition of joy you might extract from the dictionary. I'm talking about a complex joy, a resilient joy, a joy that's mixed with sorrow and pain and sadness, but with hope, great hope, and a sense of something that's greater than ourselves. Talking about supernatural joy, a resilient joy, a joy that's gained from trusting in Jesus. Now, what happens next is, as a result, and it's really sad, as a result of seeing his father in that painful conversation that now kind of reveals the underlying pain and anger that Joe's been carrying in his life, now that pain just all comes up to the surface. And Joe's in a trial, and it affects him. And as the team now begins to prepare for this big race, for the championship race to nationals. Now, here they are as a team. They're going to be, they've made it to the nationals. They're a JV team. The coach picked the JV team over the varsity team. Unheard of, massive risk to go now and race against these other teams from all over the country for the championship. And by the way, this year, 1936, the winner goes to the Olympics in Germany, Berlin. Wow, there's a lot at stake. And now, as a result of the encounter with his father, remembering in his past, it has a significant negative effect on Joe. He begins to, it throws off his rhythm, his practice. He's not really with his team. It's messing with his attitude, his thoughts, the way he's seeing people. Joe must decide what to do with the pain in his life. Well, what happens is Joe is challenged by the coach. The coach tells him, "You're not doing well. Your head's not there." And Joe responds to the coach in a very indignant way, like, "I don't care. It's whatever." The coach tells Joe to get out of the boat, and he puts him off the team. Joe goes back to his hotel room. And he's sitting there in his hotel room in this terrible state, painful state. And then George Pinnock, the boat builder, comes to visit him and invites him to come with him and work on the boat. And while talking to him, George says to Joe, "It's hard to make that boat go as fast as you want to. The enemy is the resistance of the water. But that very water is what supports you, and that very enemy is your friend. So is life. The very problems you must overcome also support and make you strong in overcoming them." Wow. Said another way, a greater way. Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow, for when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. Needing nothing. Because you have everything in Jesus. You have everything in Jesus. You are a spiritual being. Jesus is everything. Jesus plus nothing equals everything. Today, will you choose to follow Jesus? Will you choose to have faith in Jesus? Will you choose to now take this and have a way of living where you can connect this faith in Jesus to your trials and your troubles? Today, will you choose to be with Jesus? To be with him? Will you choose to follow him and live the way he's called us to live? Will you choose to do what Jesus did to overcome this world, the pain and the sufferings in it? If this is you today and you've come to a place of putting your trust and faith in Jesus, of deciding to follow Jesus, we'd like to know about that. We made it, and you can do that simply by texting one word, Chair City, to 97000, and a connection card will pop up. Take the time to fill that out. And whether you're coming to faith for the first time or today you're renewing your faith, you're saying, Dave, wow, I get it, man. There's stuff in me that I'm carrying around. I'm bitter and I'm struggling, and there's anger. I'm carrying pain. I'm enduring so much, and I haven't been connecting my faith. But today I'm renewing my faith. I am following Jesus, Dave. I am going to connect my newfound, my renewed and refreshed faith to this situation, to my pain, to my trouble, and I am going to find joy today in the midst of it all. So again, complete that card and send it in, and we will send you out a gift package. We'll be praying for you and celebrating with you truly. And just let us know you're there. It means so much. Send us an email, send in a connection card letting us know. The people who are praying, the AVO team, let us know. All right, let's myself, the people who are praying, the AVO team, let us know. All right, let's wrap this up. In the movie, George Pinnock, in trying to encourage Joe to get back on the team, says to him, when your dad walked out on you, Joe, he taught you how to quit, to not trust. And he looks at Joe and he says, are you going to be your dad? Are you going to quit on the team like your dad quit on you? Then he says, Joe, it would be a shame not to see what would happen tomorrow when all of you boys could be in that boat. Wow. Yeah. Well, Joe wound up getting back on the team getting in the boat and rowing. And as far as what happened in that race and whether or not they won it and whether or not they made it to the Olympics, I think for the first time in the history of At the Movies, Andrea reminded me, I'm not going to spoil it for you. You can go and watch it for yourself. Usually, I let you know what happened at the end. Hey, my friends, can you overcome the pain to trust the people God has placed in your life? Can you overcome the pain and the trial and the trouble to trust in God, in Jesus Christ this morning? The crew, the rowing team, I want to let you know there's something really unique about this. The boys that are in that boat, they never see the finish line. They aren't certain. At any time in the race, they're not certain about really how much farther they have to go. They have to trust the person sitting at the helm at the front of the boat who calls out to them through like a megaphone, who's encouraging them, keeping them to keep their eyes on him, to keep their eyes up. This position of the person calling out is known as the boat servant, the servant of the boat. Jesus, our Savior, says, I have not come to be served, but to serve. The boys in the boat are not sure where they are during the race. They never see the finish line. They must trust in the one who's calling out to them, the one who's serving them. Today, trust in Jesus, the one who has served you, who serves you, the one who's calling out to you today to trust in him. Today, embrace a new perspective in life and trust Jesus in your troubles, in your trials, and in your pain. To God be the glory.